From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome in to episode number 19 of Bettor Hockey Now here on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. I'm Adam Bernard, and with me, as always, are my line mates, Mr. @Ant Rivera 86 on Twitter and @FuzzyChris91 on Twitter. Anthony and Chris, how are we doing as we enter in what I would like to call the third week, I guess, here of the NHL season?
Yeah, we are into week 3 now, and the storylines keep compiling. We got a lot to discuss today. I'm very excited about it.
It's just great. No matter how many 2-goal leads the Montreal Canadiens blow, it doesn't matter because hockey is back. So it's perfectly fine. We'll stomach it for a few more weeks.
I was gonna say it's good that you're taking it in stride this early on, because I mean you can't like peak too soon with that. Like, you got to get mad about those in January. You can't get mad about those in October.
It's a long season, right?
Correct.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
It is absolutely a marathon and not a sprint. And yeah, we're going to be going through. Last week was the first like real in-season show, but this feels like, all right, now we're in the season. We've got a couple of weeks on our belts. We've got some stuff to look at. So without further ado, we're going to go through. We'll go through the quick hits on 3 different topics. We'll talk about a few teams 2 weeks in, and then today's quote-unquote team podcast will be about the red-hot Detroit Red Wings. So stay tuned for that. And we'll also give our thoughts on ESPN's NHL Frozen Frenzy, which will actually, by the time this goes live, will be tonight, a full 16-game slate in the NHL on this Tuesday. So, and I have some thoughts on the timing of it that Gary Bettman, really screwed the pooch again. But we'll save that for later in the show. Up first, of course, is going to be quick hits here. And first, you always start with the 3 stars of the week. Alex DeBrincat, we'll get into more on him later when we talk some Red Wings. 5 goals and 3 assists last week in 4 games, and is just an absolute monster right now. Didn't seem to like being booed when he went back to Ottawa, but seemed to take it in stride. Star number 2 is Alexander Georgiev. Went 3-0-0 with a 1.67 goals against and a 940 save percentage, and 1 shutout to help the Avalanche there. We'll have a little more on him later. But let's talk a little Sam Reinhart right now. Accounted for half of Florida's 10 goals last week, scored in all 3 games, had a total of 6 points with 5 goals. Got his 31st career game winner and 25th career multi-goal performance with a couple of goals in the win over Anthony's Devils last Monday. So Sam Reinhart as a fantasy asset, where do we stand on him? Chris, let's start with you.
Wait and see kind of approach. Like, what Sam Reinhart am I getting here? I don't know yet how I feel about him long term. Like, I feel a lot of people had the Florida Panthers being a playoff team. I thought they were borderline on that. They're struggling to keep the puck out of their own net, which is not a surprise because Sergei Bobrovsky has returned to the Sergei Bobrovsky that we knew. He's the Dollar Tree version of himself, right? He's no longer the high-end goalie that we saw in the playoffs. So I think for now, at some point, teams are going to catch on and they're just going to limit the best player on that team. And it's not, Sasha Barkov's been fine. Matthew Tkachuk has been fine. This is a okay team, but they're missing players on the blue line. Their offense is kind of meh. And when you have one player just contributing that much to a team, at some point teams take a note and they say, okay, well, let's control that, right? And Sam Reinhart has been a good player, but I don't think he maintains his pace at all. I would wait and see before I start burning a waiver wire pick for him, assuming he's even there, or even looking to trade. If I own him in fantasy hockey, though, I'm trading him to the first person who'll give me something decent for him. Like, I'll sell that boat right now.
Yeah, this may be the perfect time to trade off an asset and possibly steal someone better. May be able to pick someone, that you really want in a trade for someone who's hot right now, which is what Sam Reinhart is. And, you look at his line with Barkov and Rodriguez, and you wonder how long, those guys will last together. Obviously, there's injuries that this roster is not complete at the moment in time. So we will continue to, watch on that. But I'm with Chris here. If you can trade him and get something really good in return, this is the person you're going to want to do it with. This is a definite spot that you can, make a move and get someone that's probably going to last a little longer into the season and may take you into the playoffs. So if you have the opportunity to trade Reinhart, and if someone else is after him, you might be able to steal a player here.
When Bennett comes back, that could hurt his playing time for sure. I will make the argument that he's on the top power play unit for at least for now, and if even he got moved down, it would be to the second unit, and he does play on the penalty kill unit. So if you're in a league where shorthanded points matter, he's got a little more value because he can give you that and still contribute in other areas. But yeah, I think he's, coming off his performance last week, 3rd star of the week. If you got somebody that's wants to kick the tires on him, absolutely let him kick the tires as much as they want. Let him look at the rims. Let him do all that. Okay. So that's through some of our quick hits here. That is the first period. Second period, let's talk Connor McDavid injury. He had suffered an upper body injury during the third period in Saturday's game against the Winnipeg Jets. Did not play at all in overtime. This injury puts McDavid's status in doubt for Sunday's Heritage Classic versus Calgary, which the renderings of the stadium looked pretty cool. See if I can pull that up here in a second. But for most teams, losing their top guy for a week or two is pretty detrimental. Not to say it won't be for Edmonton, but I think that, they'll be able to weather the storm, and I don't see it really affecting any of his futures too much because he's just that good that a week or two is not really going to mess with his overall production.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, the Oilers are off to probably the start that they did not want to get. Everybody was talking about them obviously being, cup contenders, and that's how it always starts with the Oilers, right? And when you have McDavid and when you have Draisaitl, and we've talked about it, the worry was going to be the goaltending there in Edmonton, and it seems to still be a concern. You look at how this affects everyone around McDavid. Like, how is this going to affect Draisaitl? I don't think not too much. He'll generate points, but maybe it affects Evander Kane, who here on Daily Faceoff is going to be on the top line with Zach Hyman and Draisaitl. So, could this be a time to pick up an Evander Kane off of the waiver wire and earn some points here? It's a possibility. So we'll see what happens definitely with this injury. And I don't know. Do you guys think that he's going to play? I don't think so. Not what we've seen.
No, this looks like a 1 to 2 week kind of thing, or at least that's what the team is telling us. And if there's one thing I want to do is make sure that I take care of the best player in the world and not have him come back too early and then really just derail your whole season for absolutely nothing, right? When you're dealing with those, like, especially for McDavid at the speed that he plays, the way that he plays, it looks like it was something he's pointing to his side, kind of those oblique muscles. Right. So it's one of those things where you're shifting and turning and you're moving. Last thing you want to do is tear an oblique or anything in that core of your body, because then you're going to be in a bad situation. So I think that the best route here, it changes nothing for his futures. I agree with that. The man could take 2 months off and he probably still wins, the Art Ross. So it doesn't make a difference for him. I think this hurts the team more than anything. Like Anthony said, they got off to such a poor start, which is not what you want to do. Your goaltending has looked exactly as advertised, which was not good. And now your best player is not there. Yes, Draisaitl can shoulder that, and I think he's going to pick up the pace and whatnot. But are the Oilers as a team, like, if they can play 500 for the next 2 weeks, great. But you're not really advancing anywhere, right? You're just trying to not dig yourself into too deep of a hole that you can't get out of it. So I don't think it helps. I don't know if I'm adding any of those players around him, right? Because, like, even the Evander Kanes or whoever takes the spot, we've been through this with, the rotating door of players who plop next to McDavid and Draisaitl and just get carried to wherever they need to be. I think Zach Hyman's the only player who can hold his own, right? I don't even think guys playing next to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins maybe makes too much of a deal here. So I'm not investing too much on just a poor hockey team. They're not good. I don't know how this affects the power play as well. I think maybe that takes a dip as well. So I'm just not trying to get involved with fantasy around that team, especially how they've started out right now. I'm not taking a flyer unless I have a free space on my team, right? And I want to take a jab, maybe somebody there. Cool. Like you said, Evander Kane, probably the highest upside. But outside of that, I want to stay far away from this potential dumpster fire.
The good news, if there is any, is that because they are playing in that Heritage Classic and teams tend to get a little bit more time off around those outdoor games, there's only 2 games this week. They play Minnesota Tuesday, the Rangers Thursday, both at home. They got the game on Sunday against the Flames, and then you go into November, and they got 2 games next week. So you're only going to miss them for 5 games if it's 2 weeks. If it's 1 week, and I agree, as cool as it is to play in those events, and it's a one, for guys like McDavid, probably like a 5-time in a lifetime event playing outside the way the NHL schedules them. But because it's a core muscle, like you said, because it's oblique, you don't want to be like, it's close, let me get back out there. And then all of a sudden you twist or you fall a certain way, or it doesn't even have to be a hard impact when it's an oblique like that. It can just be your feet just aren't planted perfectly and somebody gives you a bump and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, maybe not as easy as
David's moving too. He's not like a slow, he's not a pylon that's just moving around the ice. He's not Milan Lucic. He's going out there and he's moving his body and he's contorting it in the way that he plays at the speed that he does. I don't want to take a risk at it.
I would not either. They have too high of aspirations this year. So I don't think we see him for the Heritage Classic. Maybe you get him for one of those November games he'll be back in time for if it's on the shorter end. But if it's for me, he's got to be 110%, not 95%. He's got to be at that. He's ready. He's got to be ready to play like it would be any other night. Yep. There's no reason to gut through that in November. Third period here on Quick Hits here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm. Who are these Flyers? 3-1-1 out of the gate with wins over Edmonton, Vancouver, and Columbus, with a close loss to Dallas lumped in there. Listen, I get it. Edmonton struggled out of the gate. Vancouver is not a very good team. Columbus, we know, is not. So these are not huge victories, but they lead the division right now. Like on October 23rd, October 24th, they lead the Metro. Are they still a bottom of the barrel team? Or are they like they're still not a playoff team, but they're between a wild card team and like a draft lottery team? Where do we stand there?
No, we've been here, done that with the Flyers, right? I'm pretty sure last season they got off to a great start, and then they picked 7th overall. So no, I'm not buying any of this success around them. I mean, again, same thing. If I can sell high on a couple of guys, the only guy I maybe won't sell high on is Travis Konechny, because I believe that he is a good hockey player and he embodies everything that is the Philadelphia Flyers at this point. But I mean, outside of that, if anybody else on that team, if you want to make a phone call for me to ship him over to you, I mean, I'll give him to you. I don't trust the Flyers to do anything. That division is too good to allow the Flyers to be this good, right? They were competitive against Dallas. I did take Philadelphia plus 1.5 more because I thought that Dallas was kind of underperforming and they were just going to overtime and figuring everything out past 60, which again they did. So I just don't. They're not a great hockey team. They're just not. They're there. They're existing, but I have no stock in them to make the playoffs. That Metro division is too good, and the Flyers are just the odd duck out right now. They're doing good, which is good for them, but that ship's going to sink relatively quickly.
Yeah, those odds you have there, I would definitely take the minus 1400. Maybe they stay in it for a little while. And we talked about this last week. You got to beat these teams, that are just not good. You should be beating these teams. And the Flyers did that, and maybe they make a little bit of room for themselves. And I witnessed this with the Devils. The Devils built up equity and they built up enough wins that, it kind of coasted them to the playoffs. And maybe the Flyers can do something like that. I don't see it happening, but this is the way you want to do it. You want to beat these teams that you should be beating. And the Flyers took care of business against Vancouver, Edmonton, and Columbus. Obviously, they lost to Dallas, which, we all thought was going to happen. But 3-1-1, you win another game tomorrow. You keep trying to win these games as best as you can. And if they can continue to do that, maybe the odds start changing in their favor. But what we've seen from them in the past, what we know of the team, And just like Chris said, you look at that Metro division and you can't possibly think that, the Rangers and the Hurricanes and the Devils and even the Islanders and the Penguins are going to finish below the Flyers with the rosters that they have.
Like John Tortorella is going to do something at some point that he shouldn't do with a player. Like he's going to bench Konechny because he didn't like his third period hustle in a 6-1 game or something. Like it's just, there's been here, done that kind of thing. I'm not. Don't sip the Kool-Aid. It's not. I feel like it's a trap. If I could play that meme, right? It's a trap. That's what the Philadelphia Flyers are. They are a trap right now. We don't go down that path, right? Do not pass go there, because you will go straight to fantasy jail afterwards with them. It's just not worth it.
Could they finish ahead of Columbus and even Washington? Sure. But like Anthony said, but those other teams, no. I mean, Washington does not look good out of the gate. It's still early, but they are definitely on the struggle bus right now. I would be not that I would place a bet at 1,400 to miss the playoffs, but I'm definitely not placing any money for them to make the playoffs at plus 750. So that's one of the division leaders right now. There are two weeks in, two of the teams atop the division. Not too surprised with their Vegas, who still has yet to lose a game at 6-0. We talked about them last week. Train keeps on rolling. Colorado 5-0. Looks like them and Dallas are already creating a nice amount of separation between the rest of the Central Division. So that's going to look like it's going to be a 2-team race like we anticipated on BHN. They both look like President Trophy candidates, Colorado and Vegas. So who are you taking? Colorado at plus 500 or Vegas at plus 750 on BetMGM?
I'm going to take Vegas right now. No team looks more complete than the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the Colorado Avalanche because they are as advertised and they are dominant in every facet. Their goaltending is good. Their defense is, to me, I think defensively, those 6 players, that's the best defensive core in the NHL, and it is owned to the Colorado Avalanche. We know offensively what Colorado can do. They are loaded with skill, and they will find many different ways to beat you. The only reason I say Vegas is just this team is complete, right? Defensively, right? They're getting healthier. The return of Alec Martinez will obviously help them. Alex Pietrangelo being in the lineup is going to help them as well. They're rolling out Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill, and it doesn't look like it makes a difference. Both goalies are playing at an exceptionally high level. Offensively, they're getting it done. Jack Eichel is good. We know that. The rest of that team is just, you're getting contributions from all different types of players in that lineup, and it is exceptionally hard to stop a team when everybody is contributing, right? It's just impossible to stop them, i.e. winning the Stanley Cup. So if anybody is going to be able to do it, I also think that the division that they play in is going to play into that a little bit as well. Like Vegas is in a division where you can beat up on a couple of teams. If you already have, the Calgary Flames just look like a mess. We talked about the Edmonton Oilers being who they are. The LA Kings have been very not as good as they could be. Granted, they've had a couple of tough matchups, but who in the Pacific is giving Vegas a run for their money right now? Literally nobody. After this first week and a bit, I'm not looking at that Pacific division. Like maybe it's going to be wild, right? But Arizona looks like the best second team out of there. That they got the best goalie and their offense looks kind of fun. So I don't think Arizona is going to be challenging Vegas for a top spot in the Pacific, but there you go. That Pacific division is bad. It is a dumpster fire.
Got it.
Yeah, I've been sipping at the start of the season that Kool-Aid for the Avalanche, and I might have to make myself a pitcher soon. I do really like them, and it has to do with who we talked about in our 3 stars of the week. Alexander Georgiev went 3-0 this week, right, with 1.67 goals against average, 940 save percentage, and then you mentioned that he had the shutout. The only concern I have about Colorado is who's backing up Georgiev, especially if, let's say, he gets hurt. When we talked about last week, the tandem of Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson together, I really think that those two guys mesh well. They'll probably be sharing a lot of time, so they're going to get a lot of rest. That offense is amazing in Las Vegas. So my only concern with Colorado is that, let's say Georgiev gets hurt. I don't know if I trust that backup.
Yeah, right now it's Ivan Prosvetov, if I'm even saying his last name correctly. Bottom line here, I'm going to go Colorado plus 500 because, yes, Vegas is absolutely just on a mission right now, and they do have a weak division, but Edmonton and LA, they'll right the ship. They'll get better. Calgary, I think, will solidify themselves a little bit, but that bottom portion of the division stinks. You look at the Central Division, like we said before, Colorado and Dallas, and then it's like a big, then there's a drop to like Minnesota and Winnipeg, and then there's a huge drop after that. So I would almost argue that the bottom of the Central might be worse than the bottom of the Pacific. Not worse, but there's more opportunities for a team like Colorado, I think, to maybe beat up on teams, because I think Arizona will come back down to earth a little bit too. I think they look real good against St. Louis, but a lot of teams are going to look real good against St. Louis this year. And the other thing I think Vegas is going to have to deal with is you're the defending champ. So every time and it hasn't bothered them yet, it hasn't bitten them yet, but every time you go into a building, that the other team wants to give you their best shot. You're the defending champs. They want to come at you. Hey, listen, Colorado coming into the building will put some smelling salts in your coffee too, but it's not the same thing as the defending champ. So I'll take Colorado at plus 500 right now. Vegas is so strong right now. But, I mean, I really do think it's one of these two teams. I don't know if somebody in the East is really going to take a run at it the way these two teams look right now.
Yeah, you look at both divisions. You mentioned the Oilers and the Kings, possibly being that team to threaten the Golden Knights. I think that Dallas Stars team is going to be a whole lot tougher against the Avalanche. So, you can't go wrong with the plus 500 for Colorado. But, man, Vegas, man, they are just firing on all cylinders, and it's all because they had that little slot machine to unveil their banner on opening night.
That's why all this is happening. But the hockey gods were very impressed with the Stanley Cup ceremony. It wasn't just the typical, skate out, typical season intro for they were happy with that. So they're raining gifts upon them in 6 straight victories to start the season.
I can't believe you guys are just doing that to the Vegas Golden Knights.
I'm not doing nothing to the Golden Knights. I'm just saying, they do have that target on their back, and Vegas is just so strong right now. Like I want to see what happens when I won't even call them hot because they're just they're playing really good. I want to see them bad. You don't really know how you don't know how strong a top team is until you see them go into a little bit of a funk and how bad that funk is and how long that funk lasts.
Yeah, you want to see that stretch. You want to see how they react to, 2-3 game losing streak.
Listen, there are teams that don't even have, there are teams that, you hear they'll lose a game and they never lose 2 in a row, maybe they're one of those teams. So definitely the top 2 teams in the West. Now shifting gears over to the Eastern Conference, team that did not get much respect on this show from pretty much any of us. I was probably the only one that was ready to still say they might be a playoff team, but I don't know. I won't cast fingers or say who is ready to, throw Charlie McAvoy into the ocean. But only one victory over a playoff team last year, but they are 5-0. They did sweep the California road trip. And listen, I know Anaheim and San Jose stink, but it is still tough, especially early in the year, to come fly out 3 time zones away and come and sweep the California road trip. So kudos on them. Right now, both Boston and Toronto are plus 200 to win the Atlantic on BetMGM. They are the favorites. So between those two, who would you take right now at plus 200?
I'm still going to go with the Maple Leafs. But nothing will irk Chris more than that Canadiens power play than to watch the Maple Leafs have a deep run into the postseason and the Bruins, continue this this run that they're doing at the beginning of the season.
I stand by my statement that the Boston Bruins do not make the playoffs. They're off to an absolutely fantastic, wonderful start. It is great to beat up on inferior opponents. I would lead the league in scoring if I played against 7-year-olds. I would just dominate from start to finish. I'd be the best player you've ever seen. In the Monday league that I play in, I am a very good player because the two guys that I play with, shout out to those superstars, they're just dragging me into to the top of the point leaderboards. All right. I feel like Chris Kunitz every Monday because I'm like, what am I doing with Gino and Sid? Because I'm about to end up in the Olympics for no reason other than just being at the right place at the right time.
He was on an Olympic team.
He was. Everybody forgets that Chris Kunitz was part of Canada's Olympic team. The more you know. So that's what I'm going to say about the Boston Bruins. If I have to take, I don't like the Toronto Maple Leafs situation either because goaltending wise, Ilya Samsonov looks like he's broken. The hype around everything of all these players coming in, Max Domi hasn't been very good. John Klingberg's been a liability defensively. Ryan Reeves, now that he is doing whatever he is capable of doing, outside of that, offensively, he's not very good. So. And it's touching, right? We'll touch about it there. But Justin Hall has looked really good ever since he's left Toronto. So again, the more you know. I would prefer to take none of those teams, but if I have to be saddled with one, I can't. I'm not switching my take on Boston right now. So because they have to. I need them to play some competition. I look at that team, man, and I'm like, look, it's not great. I get that it's tough to go out west, win hockey games. Easier to do it at the beginning of the year when you're healthy and your energy's good and nobody's dealing with bumps and bruises. And again, beating up on San Jose and Anaheim, join the club kind of thing. Toronto, I just assume at one point, Wall's going to take over. And then the Ilya Samsonov experiment can finish. Matthew Knies seems to have found a little bit of steam here. Those 2 goals in quick succession. He looked pretty good. Maybe give him some top 6 minutes. That'd be kind of fun. So I think that's the team that I think can figure it out more. There's more skill on that Toronto team than there is on that Boston team. That's how I look at it. So maybe the goaltending's not the same, but I mean, both options are terrible. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, no, I listen. I'm aware that I'm not putting out ideal. Halloween is right around the corner here, so I'm like putting out like a toothbrush and like an apple here. I'm not putting. I am
stuck between an unstoppable force and an immovable object right now, and I'd much rather, I don't know, get crushed.
I'm ready to put the Bruins back in they're probably still a playoff team, even if they're not like a division winner. I mean, again, it's still early. Let's see what things look like in November. I mean, their second line right now is what? Potra, Geeky, and DeBrusk. I mean,
come on, say that out loud again, and then
their second line right now is Matthew Potra, Morgan Geeky, and Jake DeBrusk. Let me repeat that, I guess. Yeah, I mean, and then JVR Coyle and Frederic on the third line.
So.
Maybe listen. Putting Zaka between Pasternak and Marchand, you don't need an all-world center there. Jaromir Jagr used to have. And listen, Michael Nylander was a hell of a player, but Michael Nylander was a much better player when he was centering Jaromir Jagr, and when he was not yet centering Jaromir Jagr.
I'm again, all of these are valid points. I'm trying to look at that Boston Bruins lineup and see a Atlantic Division Championship lineup, and I just don't see it. I'm having a hard time being convinced.
All right, let's look at the division, and we'll talk about Detroit plenty in a few minutes because we're not ready to throw them as division champs yet, even if they've played themselves into potential playoff picture. Tampa's not going to have Vasilevsky back for another 2 months. Maybe because the division is not off to a strong start, maybe the door is open for Tampa to still steal it. When he comes back, if they can hang around, although they haven't looked great. We talked about Boston. We talked about Toronto. You're not a big fan of Florida. I mean, who are we left with here? Are we talking about Ottawa? We're not talking about Montreal.
Well, we can
just
remove Montreal from anything that is important, because if they've demonstrated one thing, it is wild. They are one of the best 5-on-5 hockey teams in the NHL, which that stat alone is mind-boggling. And then to see them be so poor when they have a power play or a penalty kill. Like against Minnesota, I was just like, I was done. I was in a whole other stratosphere. Like I needed a moment. I went to bed and just questioning why, like, how could you show up to work, be that bad at your job, and then just come into your next day, right? Alex Burrows. Like, how can you continue to do that? And just like at this point, it's wage theft. That's what he's committing. But I think that the Tampa Bay Lightning at some point can figure it out. If this team can play 500 hockey and then get Andre Vasilevsky back, then they're going to be just fine. This is a team that can score goals. Tampa Bay has 20 goals already on the season. The problem is they can't get the puck out of their net, which is expected. But Julian Brisebois knew this, and he decided to trust, Jonas Johansson. So that alone is a choice, right? That's a choice that you make, and it's not a great one. So he doesn't want to go out and get anybody. He's just trying to survive. I agree with you that I'm not sure that the Detroit Red Wings are going to win a Atlantic Division just yet, right? The Sabres and, Devin Levi were off to a tough start, but, we got time to kind of figure stuff out. We knew it would be difficult. There's growing pains. There's rookie pains. Tampa Bay can get there. To me, they're the one team that I'm looking on the outside going, okay, you can get there. I think Toronto's a playoff team just because that division is what it is. They're built what it, as they see fit. And I think the Senators, like, they're getting healthy. There's players that are there. This defense is really good. Their goaltending is somewhat improved. We know what they can do offensively. This team just has to come together. Everybody's been paid. Everybody's got their long-term deals. Everybody's living in whatever rich part of Ottawa that you can live in. And, so just win now. Just do your job. Like, what more could Pierre Dorion do now? Right? Like, there's nothing. You've given them everything they've needed. So now it's a question of getting it done. If you can't get it done, well, then maybe you have the wrong people in place.
Look, we're going to get into shortly about Detroit and whether this Yzer plan has, kind of taken a jump start and gotten off to an early start for that team, because they're off to a 5-1 start right now. But, unfortunately for the Canadians, and I want to see them succeed as much as, Chris does. We know that they're going to be better than they were last year. They got taken a hit with a lot of injuries, especially to their star players. But, I see the Panthers getting a lot better. They're also dealing with injuries from Montour, Ekblad, Bennett. I can't see them being at the bottom of the barrel there in that division. And we talked about the Sabres. We talked them up, talked to Devin Levi up this whole offseason. And, this is a team that, just barely missed the playoffs last year. And I thought that they were going to be better. And I still think that they are going to be better. They may not make the postseason, but, I do think they're going to be better. And the Lightning, without Vasilevsky, that's going to be tough. I think the Maple Leafs are the team right now, even though they're only 3-2. I think Red Wings come back to earth, which we'll talk about. And maybe the Senators make that leap. Because we all thought that they were going to be better. They have Korpisalo in goal. So we'll see what happens with them. Bruins will come back down to earth, but I don't know if I am 100% in them not making the postseason, making the playoffs as Chris is. But I do think they come back to earth, and I think the Maple Leafs will be the team at the end of the day that will take the Atlantic.
I'm going to put the Bruins, their high water. I think they could finish as high as third in that division. I think that they're a third, fourth place team in that division. And it's just a matter of, how well Tampa can play until Vasilevsky gets back in terms of that. Because I do think Toronto and Florida are the top two teams in that division. Now, we talked about second line centers with Matthew Poitras. If you're looking for replacements for McDavid this week, because he's going to be back in a week or two, he's playing well right now. He's on that second line. That's a guy you could look at. Two other guys, Josh Norris. We talked about the Ottawa Senators. He's on a second line with Dominic Kubalik and Drake Batherson. And Jesperi Kotkaniemi in Carolina, second line with Nason and Seth Jarvis. So, those are guys for a short-term Band-Aid because there is no real replacement for Connor McDavid in your lineup. You're just trying to replace this physical roster center position and maybe get a little production till he comes back. Now it's that we come to that time on Bettor Hockey Now where we focus on one team entirely. That's right. Wings, boneless or not, has been a topic of debate on this show. We're going to keep it to Detroit's bone-in wings on the ice there at the Little Caesars Arena. Right now it's Wingstop for us. The Red Hot Red Wings. Yesterday, they scored as many points on Sunday as the Detroit Lions did against the Ravens. They had 6 goals. The Lions had 6 points. Let's see. They're 5-1 out of the gate. They've won 5 in a row, and they lost that first game against the Devils was pretty close. The winged wheel here, are they going to continue to roll along? Where do you currently rank them in the Atlantic? And not where you think they'll finish, but in the Atlantic Division right now, they have to be the best team.
I mean, they're clearly doing what they are paid to be doing. I've said it many times. I feel like Dylan Larkin just gets forgotten. I don't know what he did, and then he is reminding everybody he's finally. I mean, it's hard to say. I think he's finally playing with a true goal scoring winger, right? Like, no offense to, Zadina and Raymond and all these other guys, but, David Perron. But DeBrincat can finish. And we know that. Like, he did in Chicago. He went to Ottawa for whatever reason. He wasn't bad. He just didn't want to be in Ottawa. And I completely understand him not wanting to live in Ottawa. That's fine. And then going to Detroit and wanting to be closer to home. Cool. But he has come in there with some conviction and he is burying the puck. Like, he leads the league in goals. And you're like, okay, like, it's not surprising to see DeBrincat have success. I think it's surprising to see just the magnitude of it. Like, he is on right now. Larkin and DeBrincat are unstoppable. At some point, the league's going to figure it out. Like, those are the only two who are going to do real damage to you. So once you start limiting those players, I don't know if, the Red Wings core is good enough to pick up the pace once those two finally, like, you're going to have to take away time and space from Larkin and DeBrincat. You're going to have to treat them on the same level that you do high-end goal scorers. And that is just limit time and space, because those two are having a lot of fun on the ice. They are smiling. They are having it good. Like you said, DeBrincat's getting booed in Ottawa and he's still going out having a good time. So I think right now, I think this is a team that could probably finish 3rd in the Atlantic if they keep it up. At some point, like I said, they're going to come back down to earth. Defensively, I think they're fine. But I don't know how much, there's Ben Sherratt, there's Jeff Petrie. I don't know if Justin Hall is true or not. And I don't know how much I'm banking into Ville Husso and James Reimer. So at some point, there's a little bit of balancing out that's going to happen, right? Gravity works both ways in this case. 3rd is probably where they could finish if they play well. I think Yzerman's plan is starting to take effect, but it is really hard to ignore that dynamic duo. If you have a share of any of those two in fantasy, again, I have no problem. If you have a share of those two and you're trying to flip them for somebody elite, like, I would try. And it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but if you're looking at some of those players who may have struggled at the beginning of the year or not necessarily where they need to be, I mean, I'm talking the Jason Robertsons of the world. Not that they haven't done well, but I mean, if I'm the owner of Dylan Larkin and I want to get my hands on someone like Jason Robertson, that's the first place I'm going to. I'm not saying it's going to work, but
it's a good starting point.
It's a good starting point. I will say this: I was in the league one year this was the year Matthews scored 40. So this was last year. And I traded 1-for-1. Cole Caulfield got off to that quick start. I traded Cole Caulfield for Austin Matthews 1-for-1. And look, I mean, did it work out for both of us? No, because both those players ended up getting hurt in different periods of time. But look, you never know what can happen. You got to start somewhere. I'm not saying you're all going to get great. And by the way, no, you don't veto those trades. Everybody was sober. Everybody made those decisions. They were a Habs fan as well. So we played into everything that we needed to play into to get something done. But yes, make sure you go out there and you at least shop around, at least DeBrincat, because he is, at some point, he's going to cool off just a little bit. He probably scores 40, but he is on like a 65 goal pace right now. Like, he's going to balance out at some point. He has no choice.
Did Chris mention my guy, Ben Sherratt? I could have thought I heard Ben Sherratt's name.
Ben Sherratt's breathing somewhere. That's nice.
The reason why Detroit's off to this 5-1 start, right? I mean, no, obviously the hometown kid, Alex DeBrincat, is out of this world right now. 8 goals, 4 assists, the power play point. I mean, he's all over the ice. He's got 3 hits. He's got 2 blocks. I mean, he's doing everything on the ice to get this team going. And I looked at the goals for, the goals against. The Red Wings lead the entire National Hockey League with 30 goals. Did anyone see that coming? I didn't. And they definitely do. I mean, the second best team with goals is, I think it's Colorado, not Colorado. It's Carolina with 28, and they've given up 30 goals. So you look at Detroit and what they've done so far. Maybe they are that New Jersey Devils team of last year. Maybe that's what we're seeing from the Red Wings. So
Ben Sherratt +6, if you care about the plus minus stat as meaning anything to any sport in general.
They're just helping his argument.
There are still leagues that take that plus minus seriously.
There
and if
are.
You do,
I am not in those leagues, by the way. And the ones that I am in, I'm petitioning very, very hard to get rid of the most meaningless stat in hockey possible.
You mentioned the goaltending duo, Ville Husso and James Reimer. And yeah, on paper, that's nothing to write home about. But I will say this. When James Reimer was with the Sharks last year and when he played very well behind a team that was clearly not playing defense. And we all know how much goalies love when their teams play defense in front of them. So if he could play all right behind that Sharks team, now he's behind the Red Wings. And listen, I know Ville Husso is the guy, or they want him to be the guy, but they could the goalie share, the 50-50 split, the 55-45 split, whatever you want to call it. Maybe that's the recipe for them. But Reimer showed me last year that he's still capable of playing well, and he's got a better team in front of him. JT Compher and Andrew Kopp are two guys that are just great to have in your lineup. They're tough to play against. They're Swiss Army knives. David Perron he'll score a goal. He'll put the puck in the net and he'll bang the body around, but he's not going to do much else for you. I think they're definitely in the playoff mix. They're a team that I would not be surprised to be firmly entrenched in a wild card spot come March. I don't know if I'm ready to put them in the top 3 in the division yet, but that Larkin to DeBrincat, maybe more so at home than on the road when teams are definitely going to be getting their fourth lines out against the Larkin to DeBrincat line. But I think you can ride that for a long time, and I think Detroit's going to be able to ride that. I think they found the recipe to at least have that first huge cornerstone of having a duo, and now they got to go the next step. Detroit, so they're on their way.
I compared the Detroit Red Wings this year to the Devils last year. Could Husso and Reimer be this year's Gustafsson and Fleury?
No,
not yet.
I'm not buying that.
No, I mean, I think they can be good enough to. They can play well enough behind Detroit. I mean, listen. The blue line also is nothing like sexy to write home about, but they do have they have a true number one guy in Seider. Sherratt, we talked about. They've got the power play guy with Goss to spare, and Mata is fine. They've got a decent enough blue line. So,
but Minnesota's a more complete hockey team, even though they're missing, some offensive punch at times. They still have guys who can put the puck in the back of the net. But like standalone per se, Fleury and Gustafsson are just better than Husso and Reimer statistically, right? So I feel like if I put Reimer and Husso on a good Minnesota team, they would have success, right? But it may, it's not because of them. I think it's more the team. Whereas I think if you took Gustafsson and Fleury, put them on this Detroit team, they would make them even better because those two players are better. I'm not ready to buy into that yet. That Kool-Aid is not being sipped on this side.
Now, one more before we talk about the Red Wings' odds to make the playoffs. Going back to DeBrincat for a minute, is he, if the Tkachuk brothers are basically 1-2 in banger leagues, on the wing, are you ready to firmly entrench DeBrincat as that number 3 for a banger league, not necessarily for a scoring league? Are you ready to put him as like that number 3 winger there?
I can't believe he throws his weight around at that size. Man is just out there just doing all these.
He's got a chip on his shoulder, so I wouldn't be surprised to see his hit number go down next year. But I mean, he's out to prove a point. He
is clearly trying to earn, or at least he's having. Like I said, he looks like he's having fun. I mean, he's out there. I would be having fun too if I was playing with Dylan Larkin. Not that he hasn't played with good players before. I just feel like maybe he's connecting with Larkin on a different level, and they're just generating better chemistry. It just happens with players, right? Some players play better with others for no particular reason, and that is the case there. I would say that, yes. I think so. To me, I think Brady sits at the top just because of how much he throws his body around. He can finish with 300 plus hits, and hasn't broken a sweat really. Matthew Tkachuk throws his weight around, but it's much more tamed. I think he's more likely to rack up like 150 penalty minutes from just being himself.
Yes.
So I think it's a closer race there in terms of hits between DeBrincat and, let's say, Matthew than it would be between DeBrincat and Brady. I do think, both the Tkachuk brothers have the penalty side figure out. Those two are going to be able to fill that category as well. But again, I think DeBrincat might shoot the puck a little bit more than Matthew does. I don't know if he'll necessarily shoot it as much as Brady will. But I do believe that putting him 3 there is not exaggerated. I would be okay with that. If somebody came up to me and said, hey, Brady, Matthew, and then DeBrincat's right there, I'd say, sure. I wouldn't look at you and say, okay, well, you've lost it.
He had 109 hits last year, 101 the year before that, and 70 in 52 games played the year before that. So, Pat Verbeek was a little ball of hate that threw his body around. Maybe DeBrincat is the next. He's the little ball of hate 2.0. We'll see.
I would be perfectly okay with that. Does Little Caesars, I don't think, do they serve wings? I have no Little Caesars here, so I can't.
I'm going to look that up right now because I listen, and I'm not trying to listen, I'm a New Yorker when it comes to pizza. I lived there 33 years, and Anthony could back me up here. And the chain pizzerias, none of them are great. But Little Caesars is like the bottom of like the chain pizzerias. Like my wife likes Little Caesars, and I said, then you can get that when you're at work and you're ordering dinner and you're
they're the San Jose Sharks of pizza, is what you're saying.
I mean, CC's might be the San Jose Sharks of pizza. We'll say Little Caesars, the Anaheim Ducks.
That's close. That's close. That's fair.
That's. I mean, if I'm gonna go chain pizzeria, it's got to be Pizza Hut. It's got to be the Hut. I mean, and the thing about Domino's is it's not great, but they'll deliver to like 2 a.m. So sometimes it's just a availability issue, or that makes it taste better. But
I just want to know, if I visit Little Caesars, can I get a serving of boneless chicken wings?
I'm going under sides right now. Oh, let's see.
I don't have any here, so
I do see a picture of wings. I do not see a picture of boneless wings. So
it's a foul.
That's impossible, though, right? Like every one of these pizza joints have the boneless wings.
Pizza, pasta, wings, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of what they do now.
So let's see here. I'm on the website. I'm scrolling through. Those are pizzas. They got crazy bread, which that's not bad.
Yeah,
stuffed crazy bread.
Someone's got to get Illich on the phone right now.
Got wings, but no boneless wings. So sorry.
I got to get Illich on the phone and be like, hey, buddy, listen, I hear that there's a foul right now being committed by your establishment, your fine establishment. That's how we'll start. That you don't have any boneless wings.
I appreciate that.
Look, we'll save. We can only hate one CEO of or not even CEO, one representative of a franchise or league at a time. So for me, I'm still there with Gary. We're still trying to figure that out. So we'll let Illich. Maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't know there's a whole community of boneless chicken wings fans just hanging out, just waiting for our time.
Maybe don't send them the clip of me talking from about 3 minutes ago. I'm sorry. Listen, no. Even on the West Coast, like Mountain Mike's is a better chain, although their service is terrible. I have found a New York pizzeria I like out. Pizza Guys is a decent chain, but they're very localized. But
Adam, you sound like the guy who's like the guy, like the old me, like the old man yelling at the cloud kind of thing about all these pizza places and their service.
You know what it is? Like for 33 years, I had great pizza. When I had my apartment, I lived around the block from the pizzeria John Travolta gets his slice in Saturday Night Fever. And they were a top pizzeria in Brooklyn. They actually, retired recently and closed down. So I'm used to that. And then I moved to a part of the country where it's I have to go to the frozen pizzas of the world. It's a step down. It's definitely a step down. I did find one good pizza place though.
If you're gonna eat at the second tier, chain pizzerias. Obviously, you said, Adam, Pizza Hut, and I second that. And I will say that their boneless wings, especially the spicy garlic ones, those are the top notch of the boneless pizza joints.
Yeah,
There we
Pizza
go.
Hut's in Canada.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. They exist. There are a lot more. They used to have like Pizza Huts where you can go in and sit. Now a lot of them are like those takeout counters. But yes, we do. But we do not have Little Caesars here. So I just wanted to make sure on my next voyage down to the land of the free, I can
if
get
you know
some.
you go to like a Canadians game at Little Caesars Arena to go check it out, and you see a Little Caesar stand, keep going. Just keep going.
Just keep walking by.
Go to the next whatever else catches your eye to eat that.
Gotcha.
So are we going to bet him at plus 130 to make the playoffs? All this Wings talk
Yes.
here, or miss the playoffs at 160?
Yes.
Which way are we leaning?
Detroit Red Wings make the playoffs plus 130. Yes. Boneless wings being the superior wing, even money, of course. Yes.
So the Red Wings get your Bruins playoff spot, basically, because you got to assume 4 teams are coming out of the Metro if we agree that the Hurricanes, Devils, Rangers, and Penguins are all strong enough. We know Toronto's going to get there. We know Tampa Bay will tread water and get there. So that leaves the Panthers and the Bruins if you're putting the Red Wings in. So who's getting in of those two? Or do you have Ottawa getting in? Ottawa is certainly in the mix too.
Ottawa could get in. I think that from a lineup perspective, Ottawa has 3 really good defensemen on their back end. I don't know if people realize that. Jake Sanderson's pretty good. Jacob Chikrin was an elite star defenseman. He kind of gets lost. And I think people forget that Thomas Chabot used to play like 32 minutes a night. So, I mean, those guys didn't die. Brady is still there. Josh Norris is healthy, by the way. That's kind of a fun story to talk about. Claude Giroux is still there. Drake Batherson at one point is going to remember that the goal of hockey is to put the puck in the net. So, like, there's more than it. Like, there's enough skill there for them to win hockey games. I think for them, they have to win. They have to just do it. I think they can. If I'm looking at Ottawa's offense, I'm looking at Detroit's offense, and then I'm looking at Boston's offense. I mean, Boston's the odd man out in that scenario right there. Like, I'm not getting excited about Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle down the middle. So
I liked Anthony's comparison of the Red Wings being this year's Devils, but I'm going to apply that to the Senators. I think they're a better candidate for that, to make that move and get in there. But it's got to come at the expense of somebody. So we'll see what happens. At least for me, I still have those 4 teams in there. I would love to try and get Detroit or Ottawa in there. I just, maybe Tampa really is in bad shape and they put themselves in a bad hole. But again, they still have plenty of time when Vasi comes back. So it really is going to be on Boston to kind of fall out of the playoff picture there for me, if one of those two are going to get in.
I think that the Red Wings will fall just short. I am going Maple Leafs, Senators, and the Bruins. And I looked at, obviously the Red Wings have somewhat of a better offense, but I'm looking at the goaltending being the difference maker. I will take Swayman and
Omar.
And Ullmark over Uso and Reimer.
interesting.
All right, so that has been our edition of Detroit's Bone-In Wings for our little wing stop for the little Team Red Wing preview. We'll talk. We like to devote a portion of the show to talk about one team each week. At Vegas last week, we're going to do Detroit today. We'll see what happens next week. Now, before we get out of here, tonight ESPN is debuting, and sorry, Chris, this is not going to be applicable to you up north of the border. They're debuting the Frozen Frenzy, which everybody knows what the Red Zone channel is for football on Sundays. ESPN's giving it a crack with hockey. Now, they did a lot of good things. In order to execute something like this properly, you have to have a lot of games. Well, they've got all 32 teams in action. So you got 16 games and the times are staggered. Like, everything was done. Like, they thought about that. They executed that. I can't wait to watch it. We'll get into the games we want to watch that we're going to really be paying attention to tonight. But why did you do it on the first night of the NBA season? What is wrong with you? The NBA gets better ratings than you, Gary Bettman. That's number one. Number two, I understand like, oh, we want to go at them. Maybe that's the philosophy. You don't do it on opening night, man. That's like, and I understand your heavy nights are Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and you have TV contracts and stuff that you have to work around. So I get that. So clearly Tuesdays a night you could do it. You don't want to do it on Halloween. People are out trick-or-treating. They're not, whatever's going on. November 7th, what's wrong with November 7th? Am I missing something? You couldn't wait till November to do your big organize the schedule so you can get the 16 games that night and debut it that night? Like, why would you go head-to-head with NBA opening night? It just makes no sense to me.
I'm trying to get into the head frame of Gary Bettman, and I'm thinking, what if this was like just a test to see, could they steal some views from the NBA? Obviously, the NBA is a lot stronger, but maybe they're trying to see if they could, take some away from the NBA. It might not work, but to see on opening night if they could, steal a couple of views and be like, oh, you know what? Look at what we did on opening night of the NBA for, this, red zone type event that we're trying to do. All 30 teams are playing and you get to see them all and you get to see all the big plays. Maybe that was the thought process. It might not work, but I do understand the point of trying to do it. Maybe they don't do it again on that day or on a big NBA day, but they were, pushing this as every team's playing. You're going to get to see all the big top plays and all the big goals scored. That's kind of where I was leaning on that decision-making process.
And
I'm
the
glad
way
that
go ahead.
No, I'm glad the NHL understands that they can stagger, by the way, start times. I'm glad that we confirmed that. Congratulations. We figured, so we can do it. What it means is that you choose not to, right? So it's so for me, it's kind of like with Milo, my puppy. When he doesn't do something, it's not because he doesn't know. It's because he chooses to eat the sock, right? That's what it is, Gary. You choose to have every single game start at 7:00 in the early window. So now I have to watch intermissions. I understand that that's how networks pay their bills, right, with advertisements. But like, I really don't care about the advertisement. There's only so many beer commercials I can watch. And right, to be honest, when you watch it on Sportsnet's package, whatnot, you don't even get the commercial. So I think that I agree with you, Adam. I don't know why you're competing with the NBA. That's just not like, I feel like if you watch basketball, you watch basketball, and if you watch hockey, you watch hockey, right? Like, there are dedicated fan bases, and the people who are just channel browsing, right? October is a very busy month. I thought that was a choice as well. Like, the MLB playoffs are still going on. So correct. I think there's a lot of choice. I understand why you wouldn't want to do it on a Thursday. You don't want to compete with Thursday night football. Fine. Again, that's a whole other demographic, right? Depending on whoever's playing. I feel like if you're watching football, you're watching football. And if you're watching hockey, you're watching hockey, kind of thing. I mean, you could have done it on a Wednesday if you want to put it smack in the middle of the week. I don't think that would have played out too bad for a ton of teams. But I'm with you. I would have probably moved this to November, so I don't have to compete with some of the other major sports. Like you said, I really don't want to go against the opening nights of a league's, season. I feel like that is a choice. But I do think that at least for it being on ESPN, I think that'll be okay. B, just the format and the way that it's set up and the way that it's marketed, I think you can get some eyeballs just to look at it, to say, hey, is this truly like NFL Red Zone? Because we know what that is and how popular it is now and what it's become. Like, that is I would say that is the preferred way. Even if you don't do, let's say, fantasy football and DFS, that is the preferred way to watch football.
Absolutely.
If Tom Brady himself came out and said that's how he watches football.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen has said that's 7 hours of commercial-free football. Like, a lot of these, like, that's the preferred way for a lot of people to watch it now, regardless of what you care about. So I think that it is definitely interesting. It's good that the NHL got into it, because we know sometimes they do a really poor job at marketing themselves. And if you can get some type of traction here for this, especially in a US market, right? Because that's why I think that it's important for them to try to sell that to them. I don't think you have to sell it really hard to Canadians. I'll watch Anaheim and San Jose on a Wednesday at 10:30. Like, that's how much of a degenerate I am. That's fine. But I get for the rest of the world, that's probably not their preferred choice. But I am excited. I'm saying hypothetically, maybe for a friend, I'll find a website on the internet that's offering the opportunity to watch something like this. I'm saying that it's possible, that it probably exists. and that I am not going to be doing that. But maybe
No,
a friend of
course
mine
not.
will be doing something in the realm of maybe like, trying to find that website that offers it. And once you get all the the ads out from here, it's watchable in maybe 4K high definition. So I'm
A lot
interested
of details for something you're not going to do.
for something I'm not going to do. Obviously, not. We're not doing any of that, Gary. Right? We're paying our bills
No.
here, but
Now,
it is interesting. That at least I say there's some value to it.
Now, I have purchased the through ESPN Plus, so I will be a responsible viewer and be paying for what I am seeing. So I just want to put that out there. Now, the way they'll execute it probably, and just to go back to one thing, if you aren't familiar with the staggering, is so when games are staggered at 7:30 Eastern, 8:30 Eastern, when you do them on the half hour, you never have to watch an intermission. It times out almost perfectly that you never have to, you can literally, if you got a game 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 9:30, 10:30, you can literally not watch an intermission from 7 to 1. It works out that way. But I'm
East
getting
Coast, the first game is at 6 Eastern. The last one with Vegas and Philadelphia.
11:15, right?
It's 11 o'clock. I'll let it slide because you've given me hockey all day, and it's more than 7 hours of commercial-free hockey. So I will let it slide. But 11 o'clock on a Tuesday?
It's Vegas, though. If you're going to do it in any city, that's the city you can get it because
you'll get away with it, right? Gary will let you pass for that one.
So the way they'll execute it is because you're going to have so many games going on at once. The philosophies are basically because it's not as like football where okay, we're getting in the red zone. You can go there. You can kind of set it up for it that way. With hockey, the way you do it is you're just going to drop in on games. And when teams go on power plays, that's going to be when you get your look-ins. When teams go on, that's the closest thing you can do to quote unquote, all right, the team's inside the red zone in the 20-yard line. Let's go out to, Packers, Bears in Chicago. The power plays are going to be what you see a lot of during this telecast because that's the easiest way to kind of go in for key moments in the game. Also, obviously, close games late, but that's what you're going to see a lot of early on in that window is power plays and end of periods. So,
well, and then in between that, I'm pretty sure you're going to get the big goal scorers, any type of injuries that happen, any big hits as well. That will happen. Look, I am not the biggest of NBA fans. The Knicks took that away from me a long time ago, so I don't really chime in on the NBA as much as I used to. But if I did, and I'll be watching, if it happens, Game 7 tomorrow night of the Game 7 tonight of the NLCS. I'll be watching it. It's gonna be nice to flip over to ESPN and see all of these games taking place and all these big plays. Just a big highlight package of what's going on in the NHL. I don't know if the success is going to be as much as it was for Red Zone because you're missing 3 games on Red Zone: Thursday, Sunday night, and Monday. The rest of the games every Sunday get the Red Zone. In the NHL, how many times are all these teams going to be playing on the same night? Outside of that, you're going to have Tuesdays, certain amount of teams are playing, then Thursdays, and they don't play every day. You just have the one day to watch it on Sundays for the NFL. So I don't know how it will work, but I hope it's not exactly like what we see with Red Zone. I hope they kind of make it their own thing that, people will want to, get ESPN Plus just for that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they're going to continue, and I know they probably have plans to try and do this more. Once you get out of football season, Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be your ideal nights to do this. You could do it on Saturdays too, but I don't know how the NHL is going to, with the Hockey Night in Canada package, I don't know how they would feel. Even though it's different countries, sometimes these TV rules are stupid and weird. But I think you could do it one night. You can't do it every night, but those are going to be your 2 nights because those are the nights you get your 8, 10, 12 game slates for the NHL. So it's tough to do it on a 3 or 4 game night, but on the nights where you got 10 plus or even 8 plus, if they're staggered correctly, you can pull it off.
Stagger them, Gary. That's it.
And I understand it's about the teams. The teams have their start times that work for them for whatever reason. But I'm not saying it's got to always be staggered, but there are nights where it's 4 7 o'clock games and then 3 10 o'clock games.
But it proves that you can start a game at 7:15 or at 7:45, and it's not the end of the world.
Correct.
I think you can still get away with it. I think you can do it. And I think even if you shift over one time zone to the Central, right? Between a game starting, let's say at 8, right? Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, right? You could start it at 6:45. Is that really the end of the world in certain places?
You've stumbled onto the secret of why all leagues love teams in the Central and even the Mountain time zones for that reason, because it's Eastern. You can only really go one way. You can go maybe to 6:30, but you can't really go earlier than that. West Coast, obviously, you can't go past a certain time because nobody on the East Coast. Mountain and Central, you can swing your teams either way to fit your double headers. So that's why they love teams in those time zones.
I'm just saying it works.
It works. Right? We got 16 games. Which ones are you guys looking forward to tomorrow night? Let's pick like a couple each. I mean, I'm going to go first. This is going to, you don't adjust your TVs or your phones or whatever. Columbus, Anaheim, yes. I know it's all about Connor Bedard, but like we're getting the matchup of number 2 versus number 3 in the draft, and it's not like football. Like, also this week, you're going to have the, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, 2 of the top quarterbacks from this year's draft, going head to head. That's literally the only reason to watch Carolina, Houston at this point. But it's not the same thing. It's not like a head to head thing, but they, Leo Carlson got off to a good start with Anaheim. Adam Fantilli's off to a good start with Columbus. These guys were supposed to probably be drafted in opposite spots according to most mock drafts. But I'm excited to watch that. Obviously, Rangers, Flames, and with all that Red Wings talk we just had, I think that game against the Kraken will be a tough one and be a fun one to watch.
You said Columbus and Anaheim. I know the reason for it. Obviously, Fantilli, Carlson, but Chris's pup was having no part of that. I could hear him in the background. He did not like that one bit.
He was not.
Sorry, Milo.
He is not having it. He has been very adamant about wanting to watch hockey. He thinks the puck on the TV is a fly. So he was caught one night. I have a video of it. I don't know if it's up on Twitter. It probably is, but he was just staring at that TV and the puck. Devils, I think, ended up losing that game. Sorry, Ant, but he was good for a couple of moments there. He was excited. Milo's not having any of that. He's going to have none as well. I'm going to be watching the Montreal Canadiens and New Jersey Devils, of course. So he gets to watch Jack Hughes just torment Montreal's penalty kill that is just falling apart. Who knows? Maybe he scores a shorthanded goal because Montreal just gives up opportunities left, right, and center. So I'm already crying about that. Welcome back, Tyler Toffoli, to Montreal. It's kind of good. It's always great when he comes back. His wife is well cat when she loves to be here. So I hope they get a chance to experience the great city that is Montreal a couple of times, a little bit before they, have to go back on their ways. I will be watching Arizona and the LA Kings. I know the Arizona Coyotes, by the way, one of the better defensive teams in hockey right now. Karel Vejmelka has a .951 save percentage after 3 games. So I don't know if anybody had that. Jason Zucker is going to be out for a minute because he's hurt, but it doesn't matter because Logan Cooley is still there. Sean Durzi makes his return to LA. Clayton Keller has been it. There's just so much to love about the Arizona Coyotes. They're fun. They're scoring some goals. They're having a good time. The LA Kings are still a good hockey team. They're going to figure it out at some point. But I think that game can be really, really exciting. So as a late night game, now that I've seen the Canadians just get absolutely bombarded and obliterated by a much better hockey team, I can watch 2 fun teams out on the West Coast, just have a good time, hoping for like a 6-5 final there with all the goals and assists coming from players on my fantasy teams.
Just to jump on that Coyotes blue line for a second, I'm a big JJ Moser fan. I've professed my love for him on previous episodes of BHN, so go check those out on the YouTube page. You mentioned Sean Durzi, Travis Dermott, Matthew Dumber, Juuso Valimaki's off to a good start, and Troy Stetcher. It's a solid blue line. That's there's a lot of teams that would take that blue line.
Sean Durzi's on the top power play. The man is out here just committing greatness. He blocks shots, he shoots the puck, he can pick up points. My man is just, everybody was going down the JJ Moser route, which I thought was fair, but I don't believe that you bring in a player like Sean Durzi so you can not give him the opportunity to succeed. So so far he's been good. He's done more than I've expected. And it's just fun watching Arizona go out there and compete. Like I said, it's a lot to watch Karel Vejmelka be good. We knew that he's a good goalie. I don't think I had him at a .951 save percentage and like a 161 goals against average, but here we are. So yeah, if I want to watch some elite goaltending after Jake Allen gives up 5 on like 48 shots, then I'll watch Karel Vejmelka go.
And take us home. What do you got? What are you flipping back and forth tomorrow night besides a potential Game 7 NLCS?
Hey, this show has come full circle. We started off talking about the President's Trophy between Colorado and Vegas, and those are the two teams that I'm looking into the most because this could possibly be a trap game for these two undefeated teams. You got the Islanders, who's got Sorokin. You got to see how this Colorado offense does against that defense. And then you got Philadelphia. Is Philadelphia a team to take seriously? I don't think so. Chris said absolutely not. And we'll see, though. Is it possible that they could beat Vegas in a trap game? I don't know, but we will see. And maybe these two teams stay undefeated. So I'm looking into those two teams. Or those two games, I'm sorry.
You have to watch the Islanders, though. You know that, right?
Yes. And you know what? I was listening on the radio and people were saying just what you said. This team is boring. But you have Colorado, you got Georgiev, and you got that offense. So I'm excited to see what they will do against that boring defensive top-ranked goalie in Sorokin.
It's funny you say that, Chris, because last week, I forget what night it was, they were playing the Islanders were playing the Coyotes, and it was a light schedule night, so there wasn't much to pick from. And I went to that game first, and before the game even loaded on the screen, I said, "What am I doing to myself?" And whatever the other game was, I just went and picked it. I'm like,
didn't it finish 1-0 for the Islanders?
It was a 1-0 game, yeah, so I made the right choice.
Just a typical game, like you. I watched it because look at us, right? That's what we do, kind of thing. And at the end of watching it, I was like, I got exactly what I paid for out of it. The bar was very low, and it barely got over.
And the thing too is there can be exciting 1-0 hockey games, but that's like Dominic Hasek and Curtis Joseph stand on their peaks, like just standing on their heads, facing 35 shots, not letting anything in. That was not Islanders Coyotes.
That was not it. No.
I will say I did have a lot of fun watching Jack Hughes circle around 3 defenders to score the overtime win against the Islanders the other night.
He is just, and we got to wrap up here before we go too long, but I don't like watching him do it against the Rangers, but man, he just kind of just goes wherever the hell he wants out there. And it's like, you're not going to catch me. So I'm just going to do what I want. And that's how he plays. And it's fun to watch, except against the Rangers. But that'll do it for the 19th episode of BHN on Fantasy Alarm and the Bettor Sports Network. This was a fun one. We talked a little Red Wings, a little Knights, a little Avalanche, a little Frozen Frenzy, excuse me. But we'll be back with you next Tuesday for the 20th episode of Bettor Hockey Now here on BSN and Fantasy Alarm. For @FuzzyChris91, Mr. Christopher Morais, and Mr. Anthony Rivera @AntRivera86, I'm @Pucking Thoughts, Adam Bernard. We'll be back with you real soon on BHN on BSN.
Bettor Hockey Now is on the Bettor Sports Network.